Hi, everyone. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is July 15th, 2024, and I just want to make a quick video to congratulate JD Vance on being selected to be the vice presidential candidate on the Republican ticket with Donald Trump. As many of you know, Trump has been vetting a whole bunch of people, and obviously this campaign has been hard fought, and he was recently almost assassinated actually this weekend. So it's been a tough go of things. And JD is a very interesting character. He served in the Marine Corps and was deployed to Iraq, I believe. He also went to Ohio State and later on Yale Law School. And after briefly serving as a lawyer, went into the venture capital world with Peter Thiel. From Peter Thiel, he worked his way to the Senate, and he is currently the only person running as VP on a major party ticket, Democrat or Republican, to have ever held Bitcoin. I believe he has over 6 Bitcoin personal holdings in his financial disclosures, and he's been a good friend to the cryptocurrency industry, voting on the repeal of SAB 121, pro-crypto legislation, and has spoken out on numerous occasions about the overreach by Chairman Gensler and the SEC. So overall, a good pick for our industry as a whole, and hopefully someone who can advise Trump, should he win, on crypto policy in a way that would benefit the industry as a whole and the American people as a whole. Now, that said, I still am an avid supporter of RFK. I do believe he is the best person to be the president of the United States. Kennedy is the remedy. And I believe that it's going to be a hard-fought and tough election. You know, as you know, there's my personal political beliefs, and then there's the beliefs that I feel are good for the industry. Whether Trump wins or Kennedy, I feel that both candidates are well-placed to help the cryptocurrency industry as a whole. And I continue to believe that the Biden administration would be an unmitigated disaster if their regime continues to persist. As we've seen with Operation Choke Point 2.0, as we've seen with regulation through enforcement, the anti-clarity that's been brought through, the vetoes on pro-crypto legislation and the obfuscation of the legislative process for things like FIT 21, every single action of the Biden administration has been to harm or hurt our industry, or to provide no clarity to our industry as a whole. And then they have the audacity to say things like come and register when they know damn well it's not actually possible to do that. And when people like Coinbase try to do so, they're unable to do so, even though they actually have broker-dealer licenses. This is the world we live in. And I hope in 4 months' time, that administration is rewarded for their policies by a loss. Now, the reason why I've endorsed Kennedy is that I still do believe that America has tremendous divisions. And unfortunately, if Trump was to win, I do not believe that those divisions will be healed. In fact, this selection of a vice president, it's red meat to the Republican base, but it's not going to do much to unify people. I was really hoping for something like a Trump Kennedy or Trump Gabbard, because I felt that that would offer a fig leaf to the other side politically. And it doesn't do us any services if all we do is listen to one political side of the spectrum. Believe it or not, there are some good ideas that come from the left. And if you're on the right, it's not a good idea to do nothing but demonize them. Yes, woke ideology and this type of philosophy has enormous downsides in that they force people into groups, and they make people hate each other solely based upon the group that they belong to. But that doesn't mean that every single thing that people on the left are fighting for is wrong or bad. It's quite the contrary. You'll find that there's many things that unify us, especially in the cryptocurrency industry, where we fight to treat everyone equally. It's just our means and methods and our philosophies may be a little different. But I think that that which divides us is much smaller than that which unifies us. The reason why I've endorsed Kennedy is that he was the only presidential candidate running who actually focused on unity and healing and did not embrace divisive rhetoric. Instead, tried to find a middle ground. If it was a fair process, every single person would look at this and say it's probably the best of the three choices. But it's not a fair process. He's been systematically excluded from debates, systematically excluded from ballots. It has faced an uphill battle that Republicans and Democrats, frankly speaking, don't have to face. It will cost tens of millions of dollars to get on the ballot in all 50 states. And many people who watched the real debate, the debate between Trump and Biden, where Biden couldn't give out a coherent sentence, and the highlight for me was when they were discussing their golf handicap. Meanwhile, Kennedy was able to find a way to include himself despite being excluded, and gave coherent and significantly deep and interesting answers to the debate questions that were asked, relayed by John Stossel. It's an extraordinary thing that we in America claim to be a democracy or a constitutional republic, depending on which party you ask, and yet somehow, some way, we systematically exclude any voice other than the Republicans or the Democrats. The reason why there's so much loyalty to Trump is he at least appears to be, and in many ways is, different from a normal Republican. Had he not run, we'd likely be staring at a Nikki Haley nomination, and the substance between the two parties would be basically identical. While they would use wedge issues to divide people, we would still have endless wars, massive deficits, an ever-increasing federal bureaucracy, and absolutely no constraint on the corporatism of the United States, where large multinational, multi-trillion-dollar globalist organizations continue to control every aspect of our lives and continue to get more and more influence and power over every dimension of how you live, from your children's education to your health care, to how the air is regulated, the water is regulated, and the very radio waves that we walk through. Every dimension of it is controlled by a corporation at some point. If you don't believe me, ask yourself, who controls the FCC policy? Is it you, the people, or Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile? Who controls the FDA? Is it you, the people, we, the people, or is it Pfizer and GSK? Who controls the EPA? Is it we, the people, or is it Monsanto and all the other large multinational companies? And yes, occasionally we see some regulation here and there that people complain about, but things aren't getting better. In many ways, they're getting worse. And you can see that by the health and character of the nation as a whole. More than half of America suffers from some sort of chronic ailment or mental illness. We have an obesity epidemic, a cancer epidemic, especially amongst the young. And now the latest chemical killing us is microplastics, which probably is one of the reasons why our fertility rates have plummeted so dramatically over the last 50 years. People aren't getting healthier, happier. Instead, it's quite the opposite. And people aren't getting richer. At the core of many of these things is the doctrine of sound money, which is why I endorsed Ron Paul and fought so hard for him back in 2008. When we look at sound money, really is, just simply put, money that gets more valuable over time, not less. And money that's hard to counterfeit, money that you can trust. Every great society has a foundation of sound money. It's the basis of everything we do. And every failed society trades its money's soundness for a short-term convenience of the political class. There are no exceptions to this. And the United States used to have some of the strongest money you could buy. We traded that in the 40s and 70s and created arrangements and agreements that set us on a path to decline, which is why in the time of my grandfather, when he purchased his first home for $5,000, a year's worth of wages, we've gotten to a time where many people can't even buy a home, regardless if they have a college education and a six-figure income. Wasn't that long. The generations touch each other. And so that's why we do what we do in the cryptocurrency space, because we've lost confidence in the political process to change things. And we've picked up the shovels and started digging and started fixing, and we're working on our own economic, political, and social systems. Any politician, regardless of their political affiliations, that enables and allows us as an industry to continue to grow, thrive, and integrate our technology into society, we view that as a net good, because ultimately that can restore our human dignity. And so I welcome, regardless if it's the Trump or Kennedy administration, policies that they would endow to heal all of us. Now, I happen to agree with Kennedy on more than just the crypto stuff. I do believe there are things happening in our environment, and I do believe things are happening in our healthcare system which are beyond egregious. For example, as I've mentioned before, the chronic ailments, they're getting worse, not better. The forced vaccinations, which should have never occurred in 2021 and beyond, the threat of people losing their jobs if they didn't get a jab, the complete abandonment of the protocols and procedures that the FDA has used for decades. You'd never vaccinate a control group immediately after the experiment ends. You wait to take a look at the differences between them. That's basic science. That's the trust the science that we all used to follow until 2019, but we recklessly abandoned it using a pandemic as an excuse. And then anybody who speaks to the contrary is apparently an idiot, anti-science, or wrong, conspiracy theorist. There are thousands of examples of this where greed was always put before good science and good practice in the public health. We all know it. Or else, why weren't the vaccines nationalized and given away as a public good? Why were private companies with no risk given billions of dollars to do something and then given the ability to collect tens of billions of dollars in profit from you and me and everyone else? And why were you told that if you disagree with this, you would become a pariah in society? Your children couldn't go to school, you couldn't travel, you couldn't go to restaurants, and you'd lose your job. These are examples of the wedge points of liberty. There's hundreds of them. That's just one and the most current example we have. One of the reasons I endorse Kennedy is that he's lived a very long life and he's seen all of these things with a front row seat. And the people who asked for change, like his father and his uncle, they paid the highest price by a deep state that's completely unaccountable. And at the end of the day, does not care about you or me. It just cares about its own power and profit. Trump got a taste of that this weekend. It was a terrible, bitter one, and we all saw it. And what was most extraordinary to me, waking up here in Colorado, seeing in the front page of the Denver Post, a headline that didn't care at all. They couldn't even give Trump the dignity of his injury. Apparently, he claimed to have his ear shot. But we don't know. We have to confirm it. Those media fact checkers have to come. You know, at some point, you have to call these things what they are: evil. The people who are currently running our government, the deep state, they're not good people. They're evil people because they don't care about your health. They don't care about the state of the world. They kill people, whether it be with the Iraq War or proxy wars that they fight all the way through, targeted assassinations, interference in political process, or the removal of all autonomy you have over your body and the food that goes into it. You're told to sit down and shut up again and again and again. You know what? Our industry has always been political, and it never won't be. And for the people who say it's not political, you have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is more political than your money in your pocket, your voice, and your identity itself? And why in God's name would you surrender these things to people you've never met and, frankly speaking, don't care about you? That's the truth of the matter. We've done that. And we have to get it back one way or the other. I happen to believe that the political process in the United States of America has gotten to a point that no matter who gets elected to be president, they're not going to change much. They might be able to slow it down. They might be able to at least let us be aware of the truth and who the enemies are in the deep state. But the political process has been built in a way where the deep state's so deeply entrenched that only through a constitutional convention and through the embracing of blockchain technology do I think we're actually going to make a meaningful and significant change, because we can restore integrity to the system. We can restore honesty to the system. So it's going to be a rocky and bumpy 4 months. And no matter who wins, there's going to be a lot of anger and division and hate. But to quote Richard Nixon, only when you've been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain. And that's where we're at right now. We're in a pretty deep, dark valley as a nation. But the American people, we're pretty special. We're made up of people from every country in the world, whether it be North Korea or Israel or Iran or China or Russia. You can't find a country that didn't make an American. And they come here, no matter what they have on their backs, millions of dollars or just the shirt, like my great-grandparents did when they came from Italy, or the great-grandparents on the other side did when they came from Norway. They came with nothing, and they made a great-grandson who's a billionaire. That's the American spirit at the end of the day. That's who we are. You never count us out. We fight. And we're in a valley, and the political process is pretty bad, and it's gotten to the point where you can shoot at a former president who may be the next president, and half of America not only doesn't care, but some of them actually are saying, why did he miss? We have to get beyond that. We have to heal. So whoever you vote for, vote crypto, and whoever you vote for, ask the person who wins to heal us instead of divide us, and ask the person who wins to have the courage to stand up to the people who don't care about us. We have to make a lot of changes, and you know what? We're just getting started. I'm young. A lot of you listening are young. JD Vance, he's pretty young too. He's not even 40 years old. Youngest VP since probably Teddy Roosevelt or Nixon. That means these people aren't going away. Vivek Ramaswamy is not going away. There are thousands now who have woken up and have the means and resources and the microphones, thanks to things like X and the cryptocurrency industry, to keep pushing forward and get rid of the evil people. We have to do this. If not for ourselves, then for our kids and for the future. It's a complicated thing growing up, looking at the 21st century. It's a complicated thing looking at systems that are so radically broken. But that's okay. Every generation has its challenges in its time. My grandfather fought in the Korean War. Family members fought in World War II. Before that, some fought in World War I. They endured horrible things for us, and we inherited what they gave us. And those of you listening who are not from America, you can point to family members or yourselves, and you fought in wars too. You endured crises too. A lot of people listening endured the Soviet Union and its collapse, and then the resurgence of Putin. That wasn't easy either, was it? Many of you listening grew up in Africa, in different countries like Burundi and Rwanda, Uganda, Zaire. Was that easy? Some of you listening grew up in South America. Places like Brazil and Argentina experienced hyperinflation, uncertainty. The older people listening remember coups. The older people listening remember purges, hiding for fear that troops would show up and murder you. There's a shared humanity in all these things when you think about it. It's the powerful preying upon the weak and leveraging broken systems to ensure that they stay in power. The challenge of the 21st century is it's the first one, because of the internet and because of the technology we have, where everybody for the first time ever can see the truth. As horrible and dystopian and bad as it may be, the first step in healing is admitting the truth. And what are we going to do about it? So our generation is the one that gets to decide. And elections are important weighing mechanisms and benchmarks, but the real thing is going to be the tireless pursuit of new economic, political, and social systems. And we have just begun to fight. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep going, and we won't reach the mountaintop until every single person gets there with us. We have a right not to be lied to. We have a right to have autonomy over our finances, our identity, and our bodies. And at the end of the day, we have a right to be humans. We're not cattle. So congratulations to JD, and I wish him well. I can't wish him luck because the horse I'm backing is Robert Kennedy. But we'll see what happens come November. And no matter what, I do believe the American people this time around are going to make a pretty good choice. And whoever wins, we look forward to working with them if we can to be able to continue the movement here in the cryptocurrency space. I have always been an optimist. I've always believed that good will triumph over evil. And I think this is the challenge of our time. So let's get together, let's heal, and let's start fixing some things instead of complaining about the things that are broken. Thanks, everyone.